Yo, so back at it for this wiki edition of whatever I want to talk about. A lot of stuff to really cover. Um, gonna real be Bible heavy about it. Uh, gonna do my best to not actually drag off into anything I don't need to. The entire lesson itself is uh, pretty deep lesson. I have a video I'm putting together. I'm using an old video template, taking out pictures that either don't relate to what it is that I'm trying to do, or either are irrelevant, remove them, put fresh pictures in, upload it. But it has everything to do with what we're talking about now. The other day I was at work and I was talking to a gentleman, and 1 second. So the whole thing is this. Bam. We go to Exodus, right? And we picked up, like I said, I was talking to a gentleman, and we were talking about food, because obviously I sell food, and he was like, alchemy is the original, um, uh, cooking is the original alchemy, food, you know. So I say, I say to the brother, I say, well, check this out, man. This was happening. Um, I totally understand what you're saying. Totally agree with you. But some people just don't have the mind to see it. But it's funny because as he said it, the first thing I thought about was the Bible, and ever more so sacrifice. Now, before I get off into everything I'm going to get off into, I have to go all the way back to the first time that I know that the actual act of cooking takes place. And this is in the book of the Genesis, chapter 8, um, verse 20. And it says, And Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of all clean beasts and of all clean birds, and offered a whole burnt offering upon the altar. Stop. So it denotes, first off, that everything that he offers is clean, and then secondly, that it's a whole burnt offering. So he cooks all of it. It's all cooked. One moment. And the Lord God smelled a smell of sweetness. And the Lord God, having considered, said, I will not any more curse the earth because of the works of men, because the imagination of men is intently bent upon evil things from his youth. I will not therefore any more smite all living flesh as I have done. All the days of the earth, seed and harvest, cold and heat, summer and spring, shall not cease by day or night. Now, why this has to do with cooking and why this has to do with sacrifice and alchemy, um, whenever you cook something, you change the chemical process of it. And to be, frank with you, the definitive form of alchemy, if you were to pull it up on Google, is the medieval forerunner of chemistry based on the supposed transformation of matter. It was concerned particularly with attempts to convert base metals into gold or to find a universal elixir. Synonyms: chemistry, magic, sorcery, witchcraft. Now understand this. That's a synonym because these people don't have in their mind, they don't understand that there's a difference between making something that can electrocute you to death and cooking something that you put into your body, that you're going to eat. Now, the reason why I speak on cooking food as alchemy is because the original intent for man was to be vegetarians. Hold on, let me read this other definition of alchemy. This is what the food definition. So if you have alchemy definition and then you put in the word food before it, this is what comes up: a medieval chemical science and speculative philosophy aiming to achieve the transmutation of the base metals into gold, the discovery of a universal cure for disease, and the discovery of a means of indefinitely prolonging life. Bam. So before I get carried away with anything, I have to tell you that these are what we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a process that is so far ranged that they will tell you that it's about making base metals, but it's not about just making base metals. It's about being able to take things and to use them and to manipulate them into a way where in which they're beneficial. Now, obviously, the nefarious way of thinking is that you could obviously use this same mechanism for something totally adverse. So one could obviously, fix this in their mind however they choose. But the original diet of man, the dietary laws, let me just go ahead and cover those. I'm going to cover them real quick. The Most High says to the first man in Genesis 1:29, behold, and excuse me, and God said, behold, I have given to you every seed-bearing herb sowing seed, which is upon all the earth, and every tree which has in itself the fruit of seed. Excuse me. And every tree which has in itself the fruit of seed that is sown, to you it shall be for food. And excuse me, now stop right there. That's the trees right there. Bam, boom, bang. And we're going to skip down to verse 4 and no, excuse me, verse 5 of Genesis chapter 2. But I have to read part of verse 4 though. This is the book of the generation of heaven and earth when they were made, in the day which the Lord God made the heaven and the earth, and every herb of the field before was on the earth, and all the grass of the field before it sprang up. Now understand, there is obviously right here in one sitting that the seed-bearing herb sowing seed, right, which is upon all the earth, that is not the same thing as the herb of the field. You understand? So, and the grass of the field. So the herb of the field are the same herbs that grow within the grass. However, we're not going to get carried away in that. That's the dietary law. Understand there's no cooking there involved in for you, but there is a process of alchemy that one could argue is sustainable and growing any kind of produce and all life in itself being sustained. We're going to move forward. We're going to go to the next change or the next mention of food and what is not good. And it says right here in Genesis chapter 2, excuse me, where is it at? Verse 16. And the Lord God gave a charge to Adam, saying, of every tree which is in the garden, thou mayest freely eat. And by the word thou, there's a little symbol. And it says that it means, one moment, eat for food. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, of it ye shall not eat. But in whatsoever day ye eat of it, ye shall surely die. Okay, so this also is support of what I'm talking about right now about alchemy. And then we're going to talk about how all these charges have to do with the law later and the actual laws of the dietary things later. How this one instance changes everything. People are supposed to be vegans. I can't stress this enough. The environment isn't made for us to be vegans. They cut down all the trees. They don't let you garden your own gardens. They have rules like this within the cities where they'll fine you in certain states within the city limits if you try to garden. So these are just small things that a person has to think about and take into consideration. And I'm not talking about just the law of this land. I'm talking about the actual law of the book. Um, Going forward, we're going to go to the last change of the dietary law. Those are the two dietary um, charges, ordinances that I just read to you for the first creation man, and then that was for Adam man. However, both of them, as you can read, are only supposed to eat vegetation. They're not supposed to cook nothing, not supposed to do anything like that. That's not in the charge. Okay, check this out. We're going to skip back to where Noah or Noe kills all that stuff, right? Now, when we skip down, realize this. The Most High says to Noe just like this. Verse 3, and every reptile which is living shall be to you for meat. I have given all things to you as the green herbs or herbs of the grass. Stop right there. That is the definitive answer to most of the things right there. I just told you. Now, before that happens, that's Genesis chapter 9, like I said, and that's verse 3. So Genesis chapter 8 obviously took place before this. The cooking of food took place before this. Alchemy, mind you, the burnt offering. So the sacrifice also, right? See, it's all one thing. It's cooking is sacrifice. Sacrifice is alchemy. You understand? And then how this all plays into the law is even, it's so amazing. Um, um, Give me one moment, y'all, and I'm gonna check on, what's going on the page or whatever. But I gotta get all this off my chest before I start commingling with my people. So we go here. We have to understand two things. Number one, he only sacrificed the clean animals. But even after the end of that right there, the Most High makes it clear. He says, look in verse 3, every reptile which is living shall be to you for meat. I have given all things to you as the green herbs, or the herbs of grass. But flesh with blood of life ye shall not eat. This is another indicator, as I've said many times before, that serpents or reptiles don't bleed as normal animals do. Their blood constitution obviously is not great enough to be considered bleeding. With that said, we're going to carry on. For your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of all wild beasts, and I require the life of a man at the hand of his brother man. Stop right there. His brother man. He that sheds man's blood instead of that blood, his own shall be shed. For in the image of God I made man. Stop right there again. So this is a double down on what the Most High is talking about. The Most High made Adam in his image, apparently single-handedly. And then these other first creation things are made within the emulative image of what the Most High represents and then what his heavenly order represents. I'm not going to get too far off, but I have to explain that. The reason why all this is important is because the blood of life is all in these animals. Now, everything that I'm going to tell you about later on, it's going to be a surprise to you that all these sacrifices deal with animals that bleed. Excuse me, my alarm went off just then. But every single animal that I'm going to talk about with these sacrifices, they all bleed. Give me one moment. Okay. So, and I'm going to talk to you guys about flour here in a moment, because I'm going to be talking about flour, refined flour, and things like that. And I just want to be clear about it. I'm going to go to the book of Leviticus first. No, forget it. I'm already here. I'm in the book of the Exodus. I'm going to cover it now while I'm here. Exodus chapter 34, verse 15, but we're going to start at verse 12. But verse 15 is where we're going. What up, Andre? It says, take heed to thyself, lest at any time thou make a covenant with the dwellers on the land in which thou art entering, lest it be to thee a stumbling block among you. Ye shall destroy their altars and break in pieces their pillars, and ye shall cut down their groves, and the graven images of their gods ye shall burn with fire. For ye shall not worship strange gods. For the Lord God, a jealous name, is a jealous God. Lest at any time thou make a covenant with the dwellers on the land, and they go whoring after their gods, and sacrifice to their gods. And they call thee, listen to this part right here, and they call thee, and thou shouldest eat of their feast. We're going to stop right there. We're not going to worry about sons and daughters being taken to each other. We're going to talk about what they're sacrificing, right? How we don't know the processes, the exact mechanisms that these people use to sacrifice. But whatever that is meant to appease their deity, meant to appease their God. So food is the idea of cooking, whatever people think that is. I know they don't think that cooking food is that big of a deal, but I'm still looking for the scripture that says when a person is to sacrifice, they're supposed to bring it to the priest, you know, a man who's born of the people, pretty much, or a stranger, and if they don't, then that person is to be cut off, you know, and the people who don't cut off and then stoned and killed or whatever, and the people who don't do that, their whole family is supposed to be cursed, type stuff. What up, bro? But however, I'm gonna move into the book of Leviticus, so just give me one moment, and we start real quick into the. We're gonna be in chapter 8 and 9 for a little second, and then I'm gonna move around. So, and we got to keep in mind, the first dietary laws were for people who didn't have to cook anything. Now, we have to realize that Noah cooked, and he cooked food. Now, we could assume that the Most High was calling the action of killing animals and sacrificing them evil. That's logical. I'm not going to argue that. But one could also say that the Most High realized that men just don't know any better. So they're going to do what they do in all forms and efforts regardless. So the best thing I can do is just say, okay, well, what is helpful to them? And then people would have to go back to chapter 3 of the Genesis and understand that the serpent was considered a brute. A brute is a vicious or a savage, wild animal or person. When you look for images of a brute, it walks on two legs. The Most High told the serpent that it was to lay on its belly. Serpent, a serpentile creature is considered a reptile. So the serpent species is part of the reptile species overall, or vice versa, however you want to say it. But they're synonymous and they're one and the same. So Leviathan, which is a serpent, would have been on the menu. You understand what I mean? That the big thing in the water would have been, still is on the menu to be eaten. It's good food to eat. It's good meat. However, the other animals, though, because they bleed, the Most High says that their souls, their life, literally, if you bleed, guess what happens? You die. So the logic of living was explained right then and there. It's like, these aren't people who are used to killing people and stuff like that. Warfare and that entire mechanism, once again, was brought here, but that's not this topic. We're talking about food and cooking. And we're talking about why cooking is sacrifice, why sacrifice is alchemy, and what it has to do with the law. Now we're going to read right now here in the book of Leviticus, and we're going to start at what verse is this? We're going to start at verse, it would be 18, in the middle of 18. So I'm going to go back and just read it from the beginning. And then we'll just pick up there. Okay, now this is the altar that he's cooking on. I want you guys to listen to this whole process. We'll start at verse 1. And this is incredible. Now, once again, this is cooking one-on-one. Okay, this is sacrifice and alchemy all in one. This is why the priests were supposed to do it. Because if you do it wrong, guess what? You could get sick, feed yourself something that's not good for you, and you can end up dead. And that's a horrible price to pay, but that's the price you have to pay for not knowing what you're doing. So we start at verse 1 of chapter 8. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take Aaron and his sons and his robes and the anointing oil and the calf for sin offering and the 2 rams and the basket of unleavened bread, and assemble the whole congregation at the door of the tabernacle of witness. And Moses did as the Lord appointed them. Now listen, I want you to hear this right here. He said, take the anointing oil, the calf for the sin offering, and the 2 rams and the basket of unleavened bread, right? And get everybody together. And Moses said to the congregation, this is the thing which the Lord God has commanded you to do. And Moses brought nigh Aaron and his sons and washed them with water and put on him the coat and girded him with the girdle and clothed him with the tunic and put on him the ephod and girded him with a girdle accordingly to the make of the ephod, and clasped him closely with it, and put upon it the oracle, the manifestation and the truth. And it says here, the Urim and the Thummim, which is the same Urim and Thummim that I'm pretty sure is spoken on in the book of Deuteronomy, when it's talking about the blessing. Like, anyway, so let's just keep going. And he put the mitre on his head and put upon the mitre in front of the golden plate the most holy thing. And it said the sanctified holy thing, as the Lord commanded Moses. And Moses took the anointing oil and sprinkled of it 7 times on the altar, and anointed the altar, and hallowed it, and all things on it, and the laver, and on its foot, and sanctified them, and anointed the tabernacle and all its furniture, and hallowed it. And Moses poured of the anointing oil on the head of Aaron, and he anointed him and sanctified him. And Moses brought the sons of Aaron near, and put on them coats, and girded them with girdles, and put on them bonnets, as the Lord commanded Moses. And Moses brought near the calf for the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the calf of the sin offering, and he slew it. And Moses took of the blood, and put it on the horns of the altar round about with his finger. And he purified the altar. And poured out the blood at the bottom of the altar, and he sanctified it to make atonement upon it. Now let's just stop right there for one moment. Listen to what he did with the blood, right? Understand that you don't eat blood, right? Because the Most High said, for the blood of all things I shall hold you accountable. But this blood was meant to atone. So I'm going to hold you accountable for the act of this atonement that you're trying to do, right? You see what I'm saying? But let's just listen to what keeps happening, though. Now understand, this is cooking. This is sacrifice. This is alchemy. And right now, the people that I'm reading to you about are learning the law. And we're going to start back at verse 14. And Moses brought near the calf for the sin offering. And Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the calf of the sin offering. And he slew it. And Moses took of the blood and put it on the horns of the altar round about with his finger. And he and he purified the altar and poured out the blood at the bottom of the altar and sanctified it to make atonement upon it. And Moses took all the fat that was upon the inwards and the lobe of the liver and both of the kidneys and the fat that was upon them. And Moses offered them on the altar. But the calf and his hide and his flesh and his dung, he was burnt with fire without the camp, as the Lord commanded Moses, outside of the camp. Okay? So listen to everything else. So listen to that. I want you to listen to this. It said, the lobe of the liver, both of the kidneys, and the fat that was upon them. And Moses offered them on the altar. But the calf and his hide, so it's talking about the actual cow, his hide, the skin of it, you know what I mean? Or the fur or whatever, and his flesh, which is like the actual meat of it, and his dung, which is the leftover waste, he burnt with fire without the camp. So he burnt with fire outside of the camp. Once again, now people have to get like this is cooking. This is cooking. He showed the people how to properly gut, skin, and all that to the animal. Going on, carrying forward. And Moses brought near the ram for a whole burnt offering. And Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the blood. And Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram. And Moses slew the ram. And Moses poured the blood on the altar round about. And he divided the ram by its limbs. And Moses offered the head and the limbs and the fat. And he washed the belly, and the feet with water. And Moses offered up the whole ram on the altar. It is a whole burnt offering for a sweet smelling savor. It is a whole burnt offering to the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. So understand right now, once again, he's showing the people how you are to properly prepare the food. Once again, I just need you guys to see this, but no one's supposed to do this other than the priest. But this is the people seeing it. So this is why they're able to go later and sacrifice properly the way that they've been shown how to other gods. All right, carrying on, going forward, which is cooking. We're going to skip forward real quick. I'm going to come back to that maybe. I'm going to look for cooking stuff in the frying pan because that is super duper important. I like that part. 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. Here we are. It's not it, but I'm right there. I know I am. All right, so here we go. We're not worried about the frying pan part real quick, and we're going to worry about oil and fine flour, because this is something I've been wanting to talk about too. So if we go to chapter, what would be 9, started at verse 1, and it says, and it came to pass on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and Moses said to Aaron, take thyself a young calf of the herd for a sin offering, and a ram for a whole burnt offering, unblemished, and offer them before the Lord. And speak to the elders of Israel, saying, take 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and a young calf, and a lamb of a year old for a whole burnt offering. spotless, and the calf and the ram for a peace offering before the Lord. And fine flour mingle with oil, for today the Lord will appear among you. Stop right there for a moment. Now, why this is so important, why this is so grand, is because what this does is, what this says is, when you talk about fine oil and flour, well, my friends, I have a question for you. If you coat anything with oil and flour and put it on a hot surface, what happens to it? I'll let you guys answer that to yourself. Some of you, obviously, I assume all of you, but if there's anybody in here out of the four that, because there's two people who haven't said nothing, I don't know who you are. So if you didn't know that that's cooking, my friend, that is cooking, but this is also sacrifice, and it is alchemy, all at once. See, they want you to think that alchemy is the transmutation of minerals, but that's a small part of alchemy. That's a teensy weensy little part of it. You know, turning lead into zinc, zinc into granite, and granite into diamonds or something like that. You know, just wicked, abominable thoughts. But however, we're going to talk about the food again, and we're right here. So listen to this. Verse 7. And Moses said to Aaron, draw nigh to the altar and offer thy sin offering and thy whole burnt offering, and make atonement for thyself and for thy house, and offer gifts of the people, and make atonement for them, as the Lord commanded Moses. And Aaron drew nigh to the altar, and slew the calf of his sin offering. And the sons of Aaron brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger into the blood, and put it on the horns of the altar. And he poured out the blood at the bottom of the altar. And he offered upon the altar the fat, and the kidneys, and the lobe of the liver of the sin offering, according as the Lord commanded Moses. And the flesh and the hide he burnt with the fire outside the camp. And he slew the whole burnt offering, and the sons of Aaron brought the blood to him, and he poured it out, and he poured it on the altar round about, and they brought the whole burnt offering, and they brought the whole burnt offering according to its pieces, them and the head he put upon the altar. And he washed the belly and the feet with water, and he put them on the whole burnt offering, and he put them on the whole burnt offering on the altar. There we go. And he brought the gift of the people, and took the goat of the sin offering of the people, and he slew it, and purified it also the first. And that means, so he purified it the same way he did the first one. And he brought the whole burnt offering, and offered it. One moment, excuse me. And he offered it in due form, or as it prospered. And he brought the sacrifice and filled it with his hands, and he filled his hands with it, and laid it on the altar. Besides the morning, the whole burnt offering. He slew the calf and the ram of the sacrifice of the peace offering of the people, and the sons of Aaron brought blood to him, and he poured it out on the altar round about. And he took the fat of the calf and the hind quarters of the ram, and the fat covering the belly, and the two kidneys of the fat upon them, and the caul of the liver, and he put the fat on the breast. Listen, and he put the fat on the breast, and offered the fat on the altar. And Aaron separated the breast and the right shoulder as a choice offering before the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. Now understand, people can't understand this. That why would you put fat on the meat and then put it obviously on a hot surface? Right, because it's going to cook down. There's a reason why he tells people not to eat the fat of the animals. Obviously, it's not good for you, clogs your arteries, this, that, the other. I wanted to talk about this flour thing real quick. If you look up raw, unrefined flour, you find very interesting that raw flour, you know, in its regular form, isn't this super duper fine stuff that that just gets stuck everywhere. It's actually very gritty and kind of lumpy. So even if they were to beat that all the way down, flying wheat flour is not like white flour because it's not bleached. So they haven't stripped it of its minerals. So even when you're talking about, organic bleached flour is horrible for you compared to, I guess, non-organic wheat flour. There's just no comparison because one is bleached, one is not bleached. And the alchemy process, once again, of bleaching the flour, and then people turning around and then cooking with it and doing sacrifice with it, they don't realize. However, um, let's just go back to where I was at real quick. Wow, hold on. Never read this before. Here we go. Check this out. And Aaron lifted up his hands to the people and blessed them. And he offered the sin offering and the whole burnt offerings and the peace offerings. And he came down. And that would be verse 22 of chapter 9, verse 23. And Moses and Aaron entered into the tabernacle of witness. And they came out and blessed all the people. And the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. And the fire came forth from the Lord and devoured the offerings on the altar, both the whole burnt offerings and the fat. And all the people saw and were amazed and fell upon their faces. Did you hear that? So, once again, let me read that again. And Moses and Aaron entered into the tabernacle of witness, and they came out and blessed all the people. And the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. And the fire came forth from the Lord and devoured the offering on the altar, both the whole burnt offerings and the fat. And all the people saw and were amazed and fell upon their faces. And the two sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, took each with his censer and put fire therein, and threw incenses thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which the Lord did not command them. And the fire came out from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Stop right there. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? I forgot all about that until now. And the two sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, took each his censer, which is pretty much almost like a big ass wand, right? And put fire therein, and threw incense thereupon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which the Lord did not command them. And fire came forth from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Understand this. You're funny, bro. Doing too much, right? But understand, this is all part of sacrifice, bro. This is part of them. They're cooking right now, and all this is taking place just to sacrifice, just to do some cooking. So, this is why I've stressed what I've stressed about when the people had to eat the food that they had to eat, during the Passover, and why that was so important. However, let me keep it pushing. Hey, bro, 740. Jeff. It's 740, dude. Yeah, I had to wake this guy up, y'all. However, the fact that the two sons could offer strange fire only because they put incense there on it. So the incense changed the fire. So understand, when you put food on the fire, whatever the incense were made out of, right, may have been offense or may have been part of another process that they have no idea that they started or were about to start. So the only way to stop it is to take them out the game, right? Because if all these people do this, maybe something else happens. We'll never know because it didn't happen. But the idea is this. They're cooking. Moses is just going through some cooking stuff, right? When you guys hear about me talking about, mingling your food with oil and then flour and then cooking it, that's what it's talking about. It's not talking about I'm not talking about anything else. I know that. I would never tell you to do something like that. That would just be, I don't know. I just don't get down like that. Check this right here out. Listen to this. This is part of the cooking process, part of the sacrifice process way back in the day. We're going to skip down to chapter 10 of the Leviticus, and we're going to read verse 6. And Moses said to Aaron and Eleazar and Ithamar, his sons that were left, ye shall not make bare your heads, right? So you're not going to make bald, nor shall you tear your garments, that ye die not. And so there, let's see, one moment. Excuse me. And so there should be wrath on all the congregation. Okay. So what he's saying is that don't cut your hair, don't rent your garments, don't do that right there, because if you guys do that, you're going to die. And by you guys not being here, you knowing what the rules are, right? Everybody here is going to be screwed because they're not going to be able to make proper supplication. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you. But as it's saying right here, so check this out. But your brethren, even all the house of Israel, shall lament for the burning with which they were burnt by the Lord. And ye shall not go forth from the door, and ye shall not go forth from the door of the tabernacle of witness, that ye die not. For the Lord's anointing oil is upon you. And they did according to the word of Moses. And the Lord spoke to Aaron, saying, Ye shall not drink wine nor strong drink, thou and thy sons with thee, whensoever ye enter into the tabernacle of witness, or when ye enter, or when ye approach the altar, so shall ye not die. It is a perpetual statute for you and your generations to distinguish between sacred and profane, between clean and unclean, and to teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord spoke to them by Moses. So he said, look, bro, when you guys come up in here, right? When you guys come up in here, right? Don't ever think that you're about to be drinking. It says strong drink or wine. Strong drink is defined not only as, strong alcohol, but vinegar, just in case you didn't know. Tonics also. Because he said, yeah, this is how we're going to say who was, because apparently the idea that I'm getting is that this may have taken place before. Those guys may have been drunk. Right on. I'm not accusing the two sons of Aaron of being faded when that happened to them, but I'm getting the idea that they might have been just a little juiced up. And so the Most High is like, look, it's going to be hard for you to offend me if you're sober. But if you start drinking, I don't know what to tell you because it could get real carried away out here real quick, like it got for these two guys. I mean, I forgot all about these two guys getting burnt up like that until now. Like I totally and I heard the story, and I've heard that story, and I've heard that story as a kid, you know, and as a younger man. But I don't know why. It's just something that just didn't even register to me until now. And this is huge because it has everything to do with cooking, sacrifice, alchemy, and the law. Now let's talk about alchemy for a second. Once you cook the food and you change the process of it, right? You make what was raw meat safe to eat now. But there's a process to that. It can't just cook for 2 seconds and then, oh yeah, it's good to go. No, like you have to know the exact timing of it. All that is important. What, are you going to cook it to a crisp and then make it to where it's just char and then almost inedible? Are you going to, right, you know what I mean? Are you going to cook it to where you cook it to ashes? You see what I mean? So because people have to realize that there's a method to cooking, you see, and that method is chemistry. Once again, I've already read to you that they told you that alchemy is the old world chemistry. You know, just to read it again, a medieval chemical science and speculative philosophy aiming to achieve the transmutation of the base metals into gold, and the discovery of a universal cure for disease, and the discovery of a means of indefinitely prolonging life. Bam. I mean, it doesn't get any more straightforward than that. Yeah. Cooking certain things, how we prepare things, medicine, is a process, is a chemical process. But are they telling you that they're cooking medicines for you to take? But in essence, they do, right? They have to bring things to heat, to temperature properly, the right way. All these things have to be done in conjunction so that way they have the proper effect. Otherwise, it can have a total opposite effect of what they want it to have, and it can harm you. So that right there would be tantamount to, let's say, they're supposed to bring a certain plant chemical that they get to well over 500 degrees, because anything less than 500 degrees will leave this active residual poison in it, and it'll taint the whole stock, right? It'd be just like you not cooking chicken all the way, or not cooking pork all the way, or not cooking a red meat, you know what I mean, to a certain level of satisfaction. Like, you're going to get people sick, and you can actually get people killed. So the idea that cooking is not sacrifice, the idea that sacrifice is not alchemy, and that all these things play a process within the law of this book, of the laws of which the Lord gave to Moses, the instructions that we are supposed to follow, that shall prolong life. If people follow them, it would prolong their life. There is a method, a science to the laws. You understand that? There's a level of applicable science that is applied to these laws. I'm going to read to you the animals that the Most High says are good and are not good for eating. And the reason why this is so important is because people have to understand. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, but the savory aroma, as we can see here, bro, I mean, like, we can, what's the word I'm looking for? We can't say that they were taking herbs and cooking the herbs with the sacrifices, but one can only make the tacit assumption that some of these sacrifices did, in fact, include herbs of the field. It's hard to believe that they ate raw potatoes and ate raw onions while they ate cooked meat, and didn't cook the potatoes and didn't cook the onions. You get what I'm saying? When Moses told the people, if you remember during the Exodus, he tells the people to eat the goat or the ram or whatever, right? That they, saying that they make. And then he tells them to eat bitter herbs, and particularly bitter herbs. So people can be like, "Oh, that's nonsense," but I'm like, "No, that makes sense because they were named then." But I mean, does garlic and onions not smell good when cooked with meat? You get what I'm saying? I mean, do these things not smell nice when they're cooked with meat? So the savory the savory aroma, which uh, which was first spoke about actually in Genesis chapter 8. Let's just go back to it real quick since you bring it up, brother. Uh, verse 20, verse 21, but we'll start at verse 20. And Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of all clean beasts and of all clean birds and offered a whole burnt offering upon the altar. And the Lord God smelled the smell of sweetness. And the Lord God, having considered, said, I will not any more curse the earth because of the works of men, because the imagination of man is intently bent upon evil things from his youth. So, and just to go ahead and finish it out, I will not therefore any more smite all living flesh as I have done. So, just to emphasize that, it says, and the Lord God smelled the smell of sweetness. So, all the animals that were cooked all together, the Most High liked what he smelled. But then again, he smelled the smell of sweetness. I'm not going to say he liked it, but it smelled sweet to him. So, you get what I mean? It's like, and then it gives you the idea that the Most High can obviously smell. Like he has, we're made in his image. You understand? He's not made in our image. We're made in his image. So we do what he does. Like, well, the functionality is supposed to be like him. People are far from that now, but back to the book of Leviticus real quick, just to push forward. Let me find it real quick. I think I might be on the wrong page. So check this right here out. This is a good one. I'll get to the animals that are good to eat in a moment. I love it because I've been trying to tell people this for a long time. The Most High has his own divisions between the stranger and the native, and the Israelites and the sojourners and proselytes and everybody among them. So check this right here out. We're going to start at verse 1, I guess. Chapter 22. And the Lord God spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, and let them take heed concerning the holy things of the children of Israel, so they shall not profane my holy name in any of the things which they consecrate to me. I am the Lord. Say to them, every man throughout your generations, whoever of all your seed shall approach to the holy things, whatsoever the children of Israel shall consecrate to the Lord, while his uncleanness is upon him, that soul shall be cut off from me. I am the Lord your God. And the man of the seed of Aaron the priest, if he should have leprosy, or an issue of the reins, which is the testicles, shall not eat of the holy things until he be cleansed. And he that touches any uncleanness of a dead body or a man whose seed of copulation shall not come out from him. Listen, listen to that. And he that touches any uncleanness of a dead body or the man whose seed of copulation shall have gone out from him, or whosoever shall touch any unclean reptile will defile him, or who shall touch a man whereby he shall defile him according to all his uncleanness. Stop right there. Now I know what people are thinking. They're like, what is whose seed of copulation? Right? It's talking about if a person masturbates. You understand? How else can your seed of copulation come out of you, friend? Right. So these are things that make you unclean. I just needed you to catch that, and this is why it's talking about people who are uh, unclean for reasons of their testicles or or issue of the reins, as it was put, right? Is because that's how you pass diseases off. So the only way to not give off diseases are to separate these people from you. This is why there's rules for you to tell the priest what's going on. Anyway, let's just keep going. Let's just keep getting back to it. Understand, for virtually all forms of sickness, ailments, no matter what it is, they have to sacrifice something. Some form of cooking it takes place to atone for the sin or the wrongdoing, or to bring forgiveness, right, for a trespass. However, for this person, man or woman, here we go. He shall not eat of the holy things unless he bathe his body in water and the sun go down, and then he shall be clean. And it's talking about people who have touched something unclean. He shall not eat of that which dies of itself, or has taken of, or it has taken of beast, or is taken of beast. So it's saying that you're not going to eat anything that dies of old age or natural causes or diseases, and you're not going to eat anything that a wild animal killed. Let's keep on going. So that he should be polluted by, he shall not eat that which dies of itself, or that which is taken of beast, so that he should be polluted by them. I am the Lord. And they shall keep my ordinances, that they do not bear iniquity because of them, and die because of them, if they shall profane them. I am the Lord God that sanctifies them. And no stranger shall eat the holy thing. One that sojourns with the priest, or a hireling, shall not eat the holy things. But if a priest should have a soul purchased for money, he shall eat of his bread. And they that are born in his house, they also shall eat of his bread. And if the daughter of a priest should marry a stranger, she shall not eat of the offerings of the sanctuary. And if the daughter of the priest should be a widow or put away and have no seed, she shall return to her father's house as in her youth. She shall eat of her father's bread, but no stranger shall eat of it. And the man who shall ignorantly eat holy things shall add the fifth part to it, and give the holy thing to the priest. And they shall not profane the holy things of the children of Israel, which they offer to the Lord. So should they bring upon themselves the iniquity of trespass in their eating their holy things. For I am the Lord that sanctifies them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, to all the congregation of Israel, and thou shalt say to them, any man of the children of Israel, or the strangers that abide among them in Israel, who shall offer his gifts according to all their confession and according to all their choice, whatsoever they may bring to the Lord for whole burnt offerings. Your free will offerings shall be males without blemish of the herds, or of the sheep, or of the goats. They shall not bring to the Lord anything that has a blemish in it, for it shall not be acceptable for you. And whatsoever man shall offer a peace offering to the Lord, discharging a vow, or in the way of a free will offering, or an offering in your feast of the herds or of the sheep, it shall be without blemish for acceptance. There shall be no blemish in it. One that is blind or broken, or has a tongue cut out, or is troubled with warts, or has malignant ulcers, or tetters, they shall not offer these to the Lord, neither shall they offer any of them for a burnt offering. All right, bro. And a calf and the sheep, and a calf or a sheep with the ears cut off, or that has lost its tail, thou shalt slay them for thyself. Stop right there. So there's a difference, obviously, in you slaying an animal for yourself, right? And eating it for yourself and sacrificing it. We're going to keep reading so that way you understand how deep this goes. And the calf and the sheep with the ears cut off, or that has lost its tail, thou shalt slay them for thyself, but they shall not be accepted for thy vow. That which has broken testicles, or is crushed, or gelt, or mutilated, thou shalt not offer them to the Lord, neither shall ye sacrifice them upon your land, neither shall ye offer the gifts of your God of these things, neither shall ye offer the gifts of your God of all these things by the hand of a stranger. Neither shall ye offer the things of your God of all these things by the hand of a stranger, because there is a corruption in them, a blemish in them. That's cold. That's cold. You hear that right there? He said, look, you don't give that to nobody who's with you. Okay? You understand? He's like, if you wouldn't eat that stuff, you're not gonna offer it up to me because I don't want to eat it. And you're not gonna take that and give it to a stranger who's kicking it with you. He's like, you don't do that. And the Lord spoke to Moses. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, as for a calf or a sheep or a goat, whenever it is born, then shall it be 7 days under its mother, and on the 8th day after it shall be accepted for sacrifices, a burnt offering to the Lord, and a bullock and an ewe and its young, thou shalt not kill in 1 day. So it's saying that you're not going to kill the mother and the father, the babies of that one, and then also kill it. You're not going to sacrifice the babies and then the parents of that baby in the same day. He's like, you're not doing that. I like the Most High for thinking about that. I mean, I love him, but I just like that whole line of thought. Like, he's like, yo, don't, it's a level of decency there. Like, and it's awkward, because you have to really look at it like, how would you feel? You're being offered up for these people's wrongdoings. It's not like you did anything wrong. They did something wrong, but you're paying for it. So the Most High is like, right, you're not going to kill pretty much their whole bloodline, and in that whole, in just that 1 day, because there's a level of righteousness to that. Like, how can you justify letting that happen? Anyway. And if thou should offer a sacrifice, a vow rejoicing to the Lord, ye shall offer it so as to be accepted for you. In the same day it shall be eaten. Ye shall not leave of the flesh till the morrow. I am the Lord, and ye shall keep my commandments and do them. and ye shall not profane the name of the Holy One. And I will be sanctified in the midst of the children of Israel. I am the Lord God that sanctifies you, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord. So the Most High said, yeah, look, you're not about to, he said, look, whatever you sacrifice, listen to this, in the same day it shall be eaten. And this is a sacrifice, once again, a vow of rejoicing to the Lord. He's saying that you're, yeah, bro, it's like cooking the young and yeah, right, bro, it's just like that, bro. There's just a level of decency, man, you know. I want to say it was, I'm not sure if it was you or Ben Judah. Sometimes I get confused about stuff I'll be talking to people about. But one time, I'm pretty sure it was Ben Judah who was talking about how cooking the goat in the mama's milk is like a witchcraft thing, you know, for fertility. Might have been you, Andre, but I'm thinking I heard Ben Judah tell me that too, also. Anyhow, um, let's see. Let's skip forward. Let's skip forward just a little bit. Let's see this real fast. 1 second. All right, let's go back. I lied. Let's go back to chapter 10, I want to say. Yep, chapter 10. And this is about animals. Okay, that was Ben Judah? Yeah. All right, so yeah, I mean, still, um, it's the whole concept that, you know, he was talking about how, like, that's an old, you know, like hoodoo voodoo thing, you know what I mean? To it's an old fertility ritual, you know, to cook a baby goat in its milk. And I'm not gonna say nothing about that. I'm just gonna keep pushing. But you guys have to realize that this stuff has tangible results, you know. Once again, if you cook something the wrong way, you can kill somebody, man, just like that. So the Most High is like, you have to do it this way. But this is why the this is why the what's it called? This is why the exercise of the art of sacrifice are to be practiced by the priest, you know. Because if you want to cook your own food at home, you can do that. But a sacrifice is something totally different. Now, once again, though, I have to find it, but it's pretty much like if you slay something, you pretty much have to bring it in for sacrifice. So you you wouldn't be able to slay it on the land. Like you would have to go off the land to kill it, to eat it. Does that make sense? You wouldn't be able to kill that on the land and eat it on the land because it's unholy. Um, we're going to go into Leviticus chapter 10, verse 1. Let's just work our way down. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Speak ye to the sons of Israel, saying, These are the beasts which ye shall eat of all the beasts that are upon the earth, every beast parting the hoof and making division of two claws, and chewing the cud among the beasts. These ye shall eat, but of these ye shall not eat. Of those that chew cud, and of those that part hoof and divide claws. The camel, because it chews cud, but does not divide the hoof. This is unclean to you. And the rabbit, because it chews cud, but does not divide the hoof. This is unclean to you. And the hare, because it does not chew the cud and does not divide the hoof. This is unclean to you. And the swine, because this animal divides the hoof and makes the claw of the hoof and does not chew the cud. It is unclean to you. Ye shall not eat their flesh, and ye shall not touch their carcasses. These are unclean to you. And these are what ye shall eat of all that are in the waters, all things that have fins and scales in the waters, and in the seas, and in the brooks. These ye shall eat, these ye shall eat. And all things which have not fins or scales in the water, or in the seas, and in the brooks, of all which the waters produce, of every living soul in the water, are an abomination, and they shall be abominations to you. Now stop right there. Now the reason why this is so crazy, when you talk about of all the wild beasts and stuff like that, it doesn't talk about um, um, having to talk about reptiles and stuff like that right off top. And the reason why it doesn't is because reptiles, once again, do not bleed. You know what I'm saying? Can you dig it? Can you dig it? it is it is a it is a beautiful thing to be able to go through all this. But go ahead. I'm gonna keep on going. Hold on one moment. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, and ye shall abhor their carcasses. And all things that have not fins or scales, of those that are in the waters, these are an abomination to you. Can you dig it? I have to just keep stressing that because it's right there. And these are the things which ye shall abhor of birds. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination. The eagle and the ossifrage and the sea eagle and the vulture and the kite and the like to it, and the sparrow and the owl and the sea mew and the like to it, and every raven and the birds like it, and the hawk and his like, and the night raven and the cormorant and the stork and the redbill and the pelican and swan and the heron and the lapwing. And by the word lapwing, the sea lark and the hoopoe and the bat, all winged creatures that creep, which go upon 4 feet, are abominations to you. But these ye shall eat of the creeping winged animals, which go upon 4 feet, which have legs above their feet to leap with upon the earth. Of these ye shall eat the caterpillar and his like. Listen, did y'all hear this? But these ye shall eat of the creeping winged animals which go forth upon 4 feet, which have legs above their feet. Did you hear that? What's up, Martin? What's cracking, bro? The caterpillar is an animal, apparently. Not an ant. These guys are funny. The caterpillar and his like, and the Atticus and his like, and the Catharus and his like, and the locust and his like, and every creeping thing from among the birds which has 4 feet is an abomination to you. By these ye shall be defiled. Everyone that touches their carcasses shall be unclean till the evening. And everyone that takes of their dead bodies shall wash his garments and shall be unclean till the evening. And whichever among the beasts defies the hoof and makes claws and does not chew cud shall be unclean to you. And everyone that touches their dead bodies shall be unclean till evening. And everyone among all the wild beasts that moves upon you is 4 feet, which goes upon all 4, is unclean to you, and everyone that touches their dead bodies shall be unclean till evening. And he that takes the dead bodies shall wash his garments and shall be unclean till evening. These are unclean to you, and these are unclean to you of the reptiles of the earth, the weasels and the mouse and the lizard. And by the and listen, and when it says by the lizard, it says are a kind of lizard, the ferret and the chameleon and the evet and the newt and the mole. Listen, did y'all just hear that? Did y'all just hear that? It called those motherfuckers reptiles, dog. It called the weasel a reptile, dog. Right on? Can you dig it? But where was the weasel at before this? So it's classified. Do you hear that? That's deep. Because before, if you look up the term reptile, once again, if you go back all the way to Genesis, one moment. Trust me, you ain't talking about no weasels back then. So give me one moment. Eight. Here we go. And it says right here. So that's not the part for the reptile. I need to go all the way back. Bam. Because as far as I know, reptiles lay eggs. And I'm not trying to question anything in the Bible or nothing like that. But this is just something that I never even looked at like that. I never even, like, once again, you skim over stuff, you look at it, and you be like, yeah, whatever. And then when you're reading it and then you're hearing it out loud, you're like, that shit ain't right. But check this out, though. It just classified those animals as reptiles, but when you read, let's read right here. Verse 20 of chapter 1 of the Genesis. And God said, let the waters bring forth reptiles, having life, and winged creatures defy above the earth. Now, once again, when it says reptiles, and there's a little symbol, it says living souls. Now, when you go down, right, it says, and let the earth bring forth living creatures, right on, living souls again, according to its kind, quadrupeds, reptiles, and wild beasts of the earth. Now, what's funny is that we all know that reptiles that live on the... What's up, brothers? Can y'all get me at today's? All right, bro. What's happening is this. I'm trying to show how cooking is sacrifice. There's no way around it. Right on? No one way around it. And I just caveated off because I just had a little moment where, like, it just jumped out to me because the thing that is calling the lizard, right? There's a symbol by it, and it says or kind of lizard. But just listen though. And these are unclean to you of reptiles upon the earth, right? It's considering the fact that the weasel a reptile, the mouse a reptile, the ferret a reptile. We already know a chameleon, and what by the word lizard it says kind of lizard, so it doesn't even say chameleon. We know that. A newt, yeah, it's a lizard though. You see what I'm saying? It's a kind of a lizard. And if I'm not mistaken, one second, is that a freaking amphibian? Give me one moment. I think it is. Yeah, it's a fucking amphibian. See, so understand that That's not even the same thing. You get me? Like that's not even the same. Like that's a lizard with lungs. I mean with gills, not with lungs. But this stuff is deep. It's calling rats reptiles or mice reptiles. It's the ferret reptile. I don't mean to get all caught off guard like that, but that is huge. And we all know for a fact, that when it's talking about the serpent, it doesn't mean a big ass mouse. You get what I mean? So um, this was interesting. These are unclean. These are unclean to you of the reptiles on the earth. Everyone who touches their carcasses shall be unclean. La 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 la. Um, but that's such a that's such a vague one. Anyway, that didn't say snakes. Didn't say a whole bunch of different kinds of lizards. But once again, reptiles don't bleed. That's my point. And it pretty much just picked up dirty ass rodents. And obviously, amphibians aren't reptiles. Can't stress that enough. The newt is a certain. Well, they claim it's a salamander, but it's really not. It's its own animal. Salamander, newt, whatever, but still amphibian, not a reptile. Uh, or at least what we've been taught is not a reptile. Do you see what I'm saying? Like this whole thing is like this was deep because we're taught rodent, not reptile, and then it's like pestilence. You know what I mean? So like I'm this just opened a whole other door for something else. That's a lesson for another day. But let's just get back to the alchemy. Why cooking is alchemy? You have to have the proper settings. Um, I'll give you a prime example. You normally can't cook flour. You can cook flour without adding moisture to it, but it doesn't smell good. You get me? If you cook flour in a pan, let's say by itself, uh, first off, that kind of that act is what they would have you do for the priest whenever you thought your wife cheated on you. It's like a jealousy sacrifice. You get what I'm saying? And a person would pretty much goes and burns flour. You know what I mean? They burn the flour with no oil or anything in it, and it just burns, and it's this really foul stench. And it's supposed to be like a reminder for the chick. You know what I mean? So um, anyway, what's really weird is that you have to have the proper process of everything. So when you fry chicken, for example, and we could say, man, you could start from the process of getting a yard bird, from getting it to breaking its neck to cutting its head off, right? To soaking it, plucking the feathers. Some people will do a hot water bath and then a shock and then pluck it. However, plucking the feathers, then gutting the animal all the way out, getting all the innards out, cleaning it one good time. And then you're talking about, you see what I'm saying? Now you're talking about what are your seasonings, right? What do your seasonings come from? They come from herbs of the ground more than likely. So does it say that these guys are using herbs and spices and stuff like that to cook with? No. But I just learned for the first time that they thought a mouse was a reptile. But I know a mouse bleeds. Shit, I've seen a mouse bleed. So I know a couple of those animals I read about bleed on that list right there, which I thought was like, oh, that's interesting. So uh, just one of those things, I guess, where that's my point though, where the law It all changed as the times changed, as the environment changed. So what was a reptile in the days of Noah is clearly not a reptile in the days of Moses. So there was obviously a need to change the dietary functions because the powers that be had convinced people that rats and mice were reptiles. What? Damn. I mean, that's a cold one. So, I mean, when I think about that, y'all, I've read that before. And it's never, I mean, like, that's fucking me up. Yeah, that's fucking me up. So, man, that's deep. That's super duper deep. But like I was saying, like, it didn't bring up the reptiles as far as the beasts of the earth were concerned because look how that worked. Now, did it talk about snakes? No. Did it talk about certain? It didn't even say what types of lizards. It didn't even specify. Like, that's how you know that the whole thing is like, whoever translated that part of the section did a very poor job. It seems like on purpose, because read the KJV, it'll probably be pretty clear. Now, it's not going to call them reptiles. It's going to say all that creepeth upon the earth. So that's going to be the definitive difference. But still, though, now I'm just trying to figure out, like, that was huge. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? Like, what's a pestilence considered in the Bible? I mean, like, y'all heard how, like, it it considered the caterpillar an animal, what we've been taught as an insect. Um, these are it's huge. It's huge, y'all. I'm not sure if you guys look at it like that. It's huge, you know. Um, you have to have back to the chicken. You'd have to have your proper spices. Well, are you gonna roast it? Are you gonna now? Once again, a lot of these sacrifices deal with taking parts of the meat and dipping them and in the oil and the flour and fine and the mingled oil and flour, right on, and dipping the meat in it and then frying it in a pan, or putting it on the altar or whatever and cooking it like that. So when you have a situation that is pretty much like, I don't know how to say, it's not self-created, because we don't know any better, but everything we've been taught is wrong. You get me? I just had a super duper learning lesson just then, like, like, because yeah, I've all the things that I considered reptiles before just reading that don't bleed, but reading that little thing about what it considered, of the reptile, um, I mean that was pretty big. So I'm gonna do a follow up on something like that. I don't know how soon, but that was pretty big. I like that. Um, Cooking is alchemy, brother Martin, and I mean in every form. Once again, this is what I was saying earlier: was people when they let's say let's take a drug like Tylenol, right? What do they just take a bunch of stuff and just that they don't do anything to it? They just put it together, or do they have to cook these things, right, and bake them, right? Sometimes maybe even certain parts of the process, fry certain things. You get what I mean? Though they have to bring things to temperature to change the chemical composition of it, so that way it's either more pliable or it does what they want it to do. That makes sense, Martin? So This is why cooking, aka alchemy, right, is a form of sacrifice. You follow what I'm saying? Now, not all cooking, not all alchemy deals directly with sacrifice, let's say, to the Most High, because you can be sacrificing to anything. But the fact that, see, this is why preparing your own meal, everything that we do now, it doesn't matter because we just go to a freaking grocery mart and just get the food. But if you had to kill it and do all that other stuff to it, uh, the gratefulness, of being able to have caught a meal, where the Most High is like, yeah, uh, you're gonna do you're gonna do this, this, and this, like as far as like cutting the animal into certain pieces, uh, which I always think that's very interesting. That it made pretty clear earlier when I talked about how it sectioned off the animal. You know, um, People don't realize, that's the basis for cooking. You cut it into sections so that way it cooks better. It cooks a lot more proportional, a lot more even like that. So the whole burnt offerings, I would imagine that everybody's food didn't taste the same when they did the Passover. You get what I mean? Because everybody's level of understanding for cooking couldn't have been the same. It's the same. It's no different than today, y'all. Like you can't separate human understanding from then till now. All you can do is say that there's different processes that took place or take place that make their understanding as opposed to our understanding totally different. I mean, people don't really realize, like killing something is a big deal. It's a big deal when you kill something. It's never gonna do. It's over, bro. It'll never do that again. It's done. You know, and you have to have an awkward bloodlust to just want to eat uh, the seed of another animal all the time repetitiously. You get what I mean? Like there's got to be a level of restraint. You know, there's got to be somebody has to say to themselves, I don't have to do this all the time. Once again, if you heard how that dietary stuff just broke down from the very beginning till now, you know, it went from just eating, the fruit of the trees and the stuff that grows in the field to all of a sudden, yeah, you can eat these kinds of animals, but you can't eat these kinds of animals. You can eat these kinds of animals, but you can't eat these kinds of animals. You can eat these kinds of animals, but you can't eat these kinds of animals. Mind the fact that all reptiles for a while were good to go. Right on. And you weren't supposed to eat the animals because of the blood of the life was in them. So the fact that there's a I'm not going to say a misunderstanding, but people will overreach what the scripture has in it, you know. Uh, Once again, and then they'll try to benefit it for themselves. I'm not trying to benefit weasels and mice being reptiles because I'm not about to fucking eat one. And it says that they're unclean. But the reason why I brought it up that they didn't bring mention to the reptiles before is because once again they don't. Well, at least the snake, that version of the reptile, the serpent, the one that I'm always ever so concerned with, it doesn't bleed. You know, it doesn't. They don't go around bleeding all over the place. Alligators, good to go. That's good eating. Is the crocodile on that list? No, he's not on that list. Good to go. That's good eating. There's a lot of stuff that's good eating. There's a lot of lizards that are regular lizards that are good eating. There's a lot of lizards that have poor lifestyles. The habitat that they live in makes them almost inedible. You see what I'm saying? And they have certain glands in their body, right, that are either, if you don't remove it properly, or if it's not known about and it's eaten, it's instant death. And if you don't remove it properly, once again, it maintain all the meat, and then you eat the meat, still you die or get really sick. However, so there's all these little things. Obviously, rats and stuff like that are disgusting. You know, a rabbit is disgusting. You would have thought that but notice though, it didn't bring up the weasel when it brought up the rabbit. It didn't bring up the mice when it brought up the rabbit. It didn't do none of that. Follow what I'm saying? The amphibian has gills, but because it's a water lizard of some sort, more than because that's what it looks like more than anything. The Most High's like, no, that's a reptile too, dog, and he's not good to eat. The newt salamander, he's not good to go. So I think that that's amazing, because even before I was telling y'all that the salamander wasn't a reptile and that it bled anyway, that it was, so that therefore it made it not good to eat. And any one of these animals on the list, maybe outside of a chameleon or something like that, certain kinds of lizards, but stuff that's poisonous for you, I wouldn't tell you to eat. You know what I mean? It's just anything that we already know not good to eat. I'm not going to tell you to eat that. But something that we know that people have been eating that fit within the parameters or the structure of the book, I'm going to tell you what's good to go. Catfish is bad for you, and it's a nasty ass bottom feeder. Salmon is good for you, and it costs a lot of money. But they'll charge you an ass, arm, and leg for that dirty ass bottom feeder too. So the question you have to ask yourself is who is giving value or merit to what it is that we're going to put into our bodies? Because when we talk about the law, and right now I'm talking about the law, just in case you didn't know, uh, the law doesn't tell people um, you need to only worry about, or you need to try to go out and look for an alligator to eat. It doesn't even have sacrifices that deal with reptiles in particular. It doesn't have sacrifices that deal with fishes. I don't think. I can't think of a sacrifice where you do it with the fish. I can't think of a sacrifice where you do it with the lizard or a snake. I can't think of one. So um, it's always with the like a beast of burden, or something like that, or a shepherd or a flock type animal, or it's a bird. That's it. You know why the bird? No idea, none whatsoever. Um, the swan, I want to say, is talked about in the Bible, and maybe even the geese, but can't. I'm trying to think of a time when the duck is talked about. You see what I'm saying? You know, talks about the dove, talks about pigeons. So it's like there's a lot of different stuff that gets talked about within the parameters of the law. But everything that's mentioned that it says not to eat. So if what you're thinking, if you didn't hear it be read to you, if you didn't read it yourself, I would advise you to go to Leviticus chapter 10 yourself and read it yourself. But if you don't see that when you read it, you have to say to yourself, okay, well, let me go back to Genesis chapter 8, verse 20, and start there. And then if you don't get the idea that within Genesis chapter 8, 20 on down, and then, from Leviticus 10, you know, then I can actually say, like, maybe, just maybe, it'll be different than you think. Now, while I'm still here with you and I still have your undivided attention, I'm going to do one thing real fast. I have been wanting to do this all week about the judges. I'm going to be doing I've only got 2 baseball games next week. The court stuff, um, it didn't go excellent. It didn't go bad. The judge tried to act like he never fucking saw me a day in his life. So had to file a judicial misconduct against him. Um, I had to get in contact with this little commission out there in Seattle tomorrow who oversee conduct on judges and stuff like that. It's a panel of judges. They actually have the ability to affect their income and things like that. And I have to report every single one of these judges that have affected me so far. Anyway, about the judges in the book of the judges, I wanted to read, right, and just drop this on you. You know, I'm gonna skip over, and why you guys are gonna be like, what the fuck does this have to do with the law? If I have to go back to Exodus 34, is that? I want to say it's 34:10. Make sure. Yeah, 34:15. Excuse me. And it says right here, lest at any time thou make a covenant with the dwellers of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and sacrifice to their gods, and they call thee, and thou shouldest eat of their feast. Stop. So the reason why that's so important is because the Most High is saying that through all this merrymaking, through all this we want to be friends stuff, is where the idea of the Israelites commingling with all these people becomes the issue. Now I'm going to read something to you. Don't get pissed off. It's in the book of Judges, chapter 3, verse 1. And these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel with them. All that had not known the wars of Canaan. So listen, saying that these are the nations that the Most High left with Israel to prove Israel, right? And it says right here, all that had not known the wars of Canaan or Canaan. So none of these people know about the wars, right? They don't know about their families getting smashed on by the Israelites and stuff like that. Only for the sake of the generations of Israel, to teach them more, only the men before them knew them not. So it's saying that not only are they amongst these dudes, right, but they learn from who? The Israelites, right, and teach who? The Israelites, right. So this is an off and on. Hello, sister. Good evening. So this is an off and on thing. This is a two-way relationship, right? To teach them more. Only the men before them knew them not. Only the men before them knew them not. So it's saying that, like, the people who were before the guys of the Canaanites, it's not talking about the Israelites. Okay, right on. They're saying that everybody before these guys did not know these dudes, right on. But it gets to a class of people who everybody knows who the Israelites are. They're saying that everybody after this certain range doesn't know who they are. So the group of people who are being used to test the Israelites aren't even people who know what the Israelites have done to their people. In essence, is what's being said. Do you understand that? So these groups aren't going to be people who could be like, oh, I feel like you've wronged us from hundreds of years ago in the past. It's not like that. It has nothing to do with that. It'll be like they're just wronging the Israelites because the Israelites are in poor standing with the Most High. Now I'm going to keep reading. And these are the groups. Listen to this. The 5 lordships of the Philistines and every Canaanite. Now stop right there. Canaan or Canaan is his own person. He has a bunch of children, okay, that become nations. But he himself makes his own nation of people. I have to distinguish that. So the people I'm about to read right now are also his children. the Sidonian, who's the firstborn of Canaan, and the Evite, who's a child of Canaan, who dwelt in Libanus, almost at Libanus, from the mount of Hermon to Lebemeth. And this one was done in order to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would obey the commands of the Lord, which he charged their fathers by the hand of Moses. Stop right there. Why this is so important. The stuff I was just reading to you guys in the book of the Levites was by whose hand? Moses. Did you guys not hear about the two dudes getting burnt alive because they were trying to do too much during a time in which Moses had just told the whole congregation of the people that the Most High was going to manifest himself? Excuse me. But that's just how it works. It's amazing. Now, let me just read something to you. And the children of Israel, this is verse 5, chapter 3 of the Judges, and the children of Israel dwelt in the midst of the Canaanite, and the Kittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Evite, and the Jebusite. And they took their daughters for wives to themselves, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot their God, and served Baalim and the groves. And the Lord was very angry with Israel, and sold them into the hand of Korath the same. Kusarathim, king of Syria, of the rivers. And the children of Israel served Kusarathim 8 years. Stop right there, though. Stop right there. Now you're like, what the fuck does this got to do with cooking and sacrifice? When I say I guarantee you, I'll put top, middle, bottom, every dollar on it, that for every wicked ass Levite priest that was serving another god was using the same shit that they learned for sacrifice to these other gods. I'll put top, middle, and bottom dollar on it. Okay? All right. On top of that, these guys were probably sacrificing with God knows what kind of animals, any old kind of animals, eating it and everything. And because they were living, they didn't just die right away, right? They weren't just dropping dead. So then they didn't believe the ordinance, But then you had guys starting to get health problems, dudes having heart attacks way back in the day back then, premature age, having a heart attack, guys are super duper out of shape and stuff like that because they eat the fat of animals all the time. You get what I'm talking about? That kind of thing. I'm going to read to you a little more. Now, I'm going to say something. This guy I'm about to read about, he's a Benjamite. Okay? Now, this Benjamite I'm going to read about, I'm going to skip about 8 verses. He's ambidextrous, right? And he kills this fat guy named Eglam, right? Now, what's so important about all this stuff right here is that people have to realize is that Eglam is presumably a Moabite, and people are forced to, what's the word I'm looking for? Pay homage, give homage to this man, right? So it's once again a presumable thing. If the children of Israel are already not within right standing with the Most High, that they're sacrificing God knows what to God knows who, and once again they're partaking, they're eating this stuff. The reason why it's so important, the law, because now you're talking about, let's say this guy takes and sacrifices a diseased rat, then eats a diseased rat. Whatever sickness that rat has, their body has to fight off that sickness now. You see what I'm saying? So there's so many different levels to how I can compare all this stuff. And then what I wanted to do, I almost forgot. Thank you, brother Andre Wickham. Spectra, how you see things, how you hear things, how you feel things. Um, Eating food will change your brain, your mind, just like using narcotics. Food has a hypnotic effect on people. I'm pretty sure we've all seen someone dance around while they eat the food. If not, be the person who's dancing around while they're eating the food. This is serious. I know it sounds funny, but that's how food affects people. You see, it's not just something that you need to survive. It actually affects you. It has a literal draw on your life. So this is why people who normally don't eat high intakes of meat, people who don't eat, you know, any kind of animal like that, really for the most part, and they're able to get the proper nutrients that they need, they're normally healthier than everyone else. You know, their internal body is normally better than everyone else's, just because they don't eat meat like the rest of us. You know, so their body's not constantly breaking down. Uh, yeah, of course. Yeah. You you shouldn't feel bad because you didn't, eat a bunch of food. You should feel good that your body can function. Now, I'm not saying to go starve. I'm not saying to starve ourselves. You know, right? That's all I'm saying. Can you dig it? Right. So that's my point. Is that, and I know people who hum when they eat too. Is that Yakimel? Yakimel? Huasteca? Yes. So you, sir, or ma'am, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's the point that I'm saying though, is that food has a trans on you. It does something to you. So if a person is to, let's say, sacrifice um to a living deity, right? So they sacrifice to a living deity, some kind of god king back in the day. And this god king poured his magical fairy dust on her, or this god queen, this goddess queen pours her magical fairy dust on the food, or sprinkles it everywhere in this, in this given area, and people eat or drink whatever it is. That is going to have some kind of effect, you know. If they follow a certain ritualistic plan to conjure up a certain being, right? Where you have to kill so many animals, so many gallons of blood have to be poured in a certain type of direction, or whatever the hell it is, because it's a process. Once again, it's alchemy at its finest. Now, it just looks like a sacrifice, but it's a process. If you mess up one of the parts of the process, the sacrifice or the ritual in itself may be rendered null and void. You understand what I'm talking about? So it would be hard for me to believe that people were taking to um, the priest when the priests were actually partially righteous and giving to them defected animals, and the priests were taking them. Now, obviously, to have to mention to not take defected animals must mean that these people may have the inclination to either want to offer up defected animals or to take them for sacrifice. You see what I mean? And so this is a way for the Most High to not only check and to make sure that the people who are supposed to be the priest don't overreach their authority, but also so that way to make sure that whatever they're putting into their body is at the utmost, the highest level for their health. You don't want to feed somebody anything. You are what you eat in so many different ways. Um, I'm not sure if you guys, once again, I've talked about the Essenes before, and I'm not going to go into this very much. But the Essenes were a group of people who lived back during the time, supposedly, during the times of the guy that they called Jesus, Yehoshua. And the Essenes were like this mysterious group. They were vegans. They were celibates. They didn't practice animal sacrifice. Matter of fact, they aborted. Um, they, but they followed a lot of the other tenets within the scripture, and they were considered very holy people. And one of the gates to the city was actually the Essene Gate. So they were a group that had maintained or established some form of uh, of uh, of a reputation. You know, they were a reputable group. Now, within this same group, once again, they didn't believe in sacrifice, so they didn't believe in that form of alchemy. You understand? And whatever they cooked were things that they grew in the field. So there, you're not talking about people who are cooking and killing something that was breathing with the with the breath of life in it. You understand? You know, that was a living soul. No, you're talking about something that has, from our understanding, and I'll use a scientific point of view to support this, it uses photosynthesis. So its main energy source is the sun or light, and it needs the light to grow, and it needs a certain level of hydration to support that. And between those two things, the plant will grow. So, with that said, that form of science and alchemy, the only thing you can do is rip the plant out of the ground, and that's it. You get what I mean? But now you don't eat. So that would be an impractical thing to do. So that form of alchemy, once again, is one that doesn't need you to serve any purpose. Um, Trees are going to grow on their own. A tree doesn't need my permission nor my help to grow. But if I were to, let's say, plant a harvest, and I were to seek to harvest something, I would have to do the work of tilling the land, planting the seed, watering the seed, right? And then maintaining the watering of the plant at appropriate times throughout whatever I figured out the day was or the nighttime, so that way my plants would be properly nourished. Um, Once again, that's a whole nother form of alchemy. That's a whole nother different type of science we're talking about, which is why when I spoke on the dietary laws, I didn't go into this. But now that I can explain the fact that we already know that cooking is alchemy, then the alchemy of the plant growing, you see, is essentially, you cannot undo the process that the Most High has created, that He has invented to be perfect, for the sole purpose of being perfect, to sustain life. So, for a person to try to tell you, or for a group of people to try to attempt to tell you that that all life isn't some form or some way, shape, or form alchemy or affected by alchemy, they're a liar. I told you it's the old world form of chemistry, and for those of the lacks of mind, right? It's witchcraft and sorcery, because they know no better, because that's the only alchemy that they know of. Now, understand, cooking is a form of alchemy. It is. In order to cook, you must know what the fuck you're doing. Excuse my language, but I have yet to see somebody, I don't know anybody who knows that chicken can get you sick if it's not cooked properly, who goes and buys chicken and is like, I'm about to cook it, if they don't know how to cook. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. That's why it's a skill. You see, cooking is it's a professional skill. This is why one restaurant, you see, when they practice poor alchemy, you see what I'm saying? And then on top of that, poor hygiene. So when they're unclean, hold on, listen, they're unclean and then they practice alchemy, i.e., they use the restroom and don't wash their hands, right? Or they smoke cigarettes, or they sneeze and cough and stuff, and don't want to wash their hands, and they want to prepare a meal for you. right? Those kinds of people. Then they go and they're dealing with these substances that may already be tainted or unclean themselves with an unclean vessel, right? Now, do you get where I'm going with this? They're only increasing the chance for there to be something wrong to happen, something bad to happen. There have been a countless number of villages, I'm sure, where somebody ill prepared the food, or someone was able to poison the food and they didn't eat it, or maybe they did eat it and they got their Jim Jones on or whatever, right? But they all died because it was ill prepared, because the person who prepared it either was not in their right mind, or the person didn't know what they were doing. And it may have been something that they weren't used to, or maybe it was something that they were used to cooking before, but maybe the food was tainted. Maybe it has nothing to do with their level of skill. This is why the Most High tells us, or told Moses at least, to tell the people, don't eat food that is bad for you. You know what I mean? And by bad for you, I mean that food that the animals have tumors, ulcers. They have messed up, broken bodies. You see what I'm saying? So this just means that people can be like, oh well, it said that you can slay that yourself. Yeah, but if you're gonna do that, you have to do that off the land. You don't do that on the land. You see what I mean? Because that would be you pretty much practicing sacrifice, right? So the idea, once again, that cooking is not sacrifice is ludicrous. Cooking is sacrifice. Sacrifice is alchemy, and all these things are the law. They all tie together, you know, and they come together on many different junctions. Um, I'm going to skip forward to the birth of, not to the birth, but to the time where young Samson was going to be born. Okay, and the reason why I want to skip forward to that, because I want you to read this diet that Samson's mother was on. One moment. That could explain about Chipotle and Subway. It could, but give me one moment. Okay, sister. The definition. I'm going to read them both again. I'm going to read the shorter one first and the longer one second. Alchemy, as defined, is the medieval forerunner of chemistry based on the supposed transformation of matter. It was concerned particularly with the attempts to convert base metals into gold and to find a universal elixir. As synonyms are chemistry, magic, sorcery, witchcraft. One moment. Here we go. Definition of alchemy: a medieval chemical science and speculative philosophy aiming to achieve the transmutation of the base metals into gold, the discovery of a universal cure for disease, and the idea of a means of indefinitely prolonging life. That is what alchemy is, sister. But alchemy essentially is the combination of particular chemicals, particular substances for a desired result and effect. So you take a seed and you put it in the dirt and you put water on it and you put light on it so that way it grows. That is it most definitely is alchemy. It is a form of alchemy. It is a form of chemistry, biology. It's all these things. You see? But cooking is a much more finite version of all that, because in order to cook, you must have something to cook. Less to have something to cook with, but you must have something to cook. Because you can put your food on a stick and throw it over a fire, essentially, and eat that. But that takes the ability of being able to add wood to whatever the fruit or vegetable or whatever it is. And once you pierce it and put it on there, you've changed the chemical process then, because you've now changed the outward and inner flesh of the fruit, And then once you add the heat to it, then you've totally changed the chemical process of it, because you changed not only the fruits process, but you also changed the wood that it's cooking on, or the spit that you have it on. So there's a level of of true reckoning that a person has to come to when they are dealing with something like food. Cooking, can't stress it enough. If a person is going to tell you that they're about to cook a whole animal, they're like, I'm about to roast a whole pig, right? They don't know it, but they're practicing sacrifice. They tell you they're about to roast a whole goat. They don't know it. Unless they do know it, they're practicing sacrifice. These are people who do these things on purpose. You see what I'm saying? These are people not all of them on purpose, but many of these people know what they're doing. I'll give you a prime example. A lot of people from the East African community who live out here where I live in Washington, they'll go to these places that sell whole goats and half goats, and they'll tell them like, yeah, man, I want to buy a goat, and they'll buy the whole goat, and these guys already know they already know what they're up to. You know what I mean? You know, like they literally know what they're up to. It's not a secret what they're up to, but it's because they sacrifice to whatever it is that they believe in, or they're doing whatever it is that they want to do. They're not held to the same level of accountability. You see what I'm saying? Um, uh, I just think it's weird because we're depending on we depend on a society of people who don't know anything, who can't really tell us, who don't really know anything. We expect them to tell us uh, the truth. You get what I'm saying? The term alchemy. Do they call your chemistry? Would your mother or father approve of you taking chemistry, or any of that stuff that's involved with chemistry, if they thought or knew that you were actually involved in what is old world magic? Probably not. You see what I'm saying? So the idea that that we're here in this world where people cook, you know, um, people cook every day, but people go to restaurants and buy food and get sick every day too. You know, so I can say, yeah, oh, this, that, and the other, but that's the truth. People cook every day, and people get sick every day. You get what I mean? And there has to be a level of understanding that folks take from all of it. There's a level of sensibility you have to have. You can get sick cooking a food that normally, if you eat it raw, it's just fine. But if you cook it, you have to cook it all the way through. Otherwise, it's no good. You see what I'm saying? So, like an egg, you follow what I'm saying? People eat raw eggs. Not that that's good for you, but you can. But if you were to partially cook the eggs and then try to eat it, you probably gonna get sick. You see what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things, you know. Um, if you're gonna warm up your milk, I would advise for you to drink that warm milk right away. I wouldn't tell you to drink it and then let it get cold again and then try to drink that. I don't know how that's gonna turn out, Chief. You get what I'm saying? So people have to respect the process of what it is that they're dealing with. It's easy to say that cooking isn't sacrifice and cooking is just how we live to survive. But if you believe in the Bible, the first people didn't have to cook to survive. Right. So cooking, and then when you hear about people cooking, they're normally cooking cakes. They're making bread. They cook bread and bean. They're not killing animals. I can't stress it enough. when they want to kill an animal and all that stuff, they say in particularly that they brought forth this animal and they slayed it because they want you to know that they killed this animal. They want you to know. You know what I'm saying? Like this, they want you to know that they did that. Like it's amazing. You know. Before I roll on out, because I can't give you everything that I got in the Book of Judges. Can't I know I just can't do that, y'all. I got a lot of stuff I got to do, but I want to. I'm going to do a live stream probably tomorrow night, or in the middle of the day. It'll be in the middle of the day or tomorrow night, um, and it's about the process of legal activity. I want to just talk about these court cases. I want to talk about what Andre Wickham said. He was it really really touched my spirit because he's right. Most people are victims of ignorance in the court. You know, it's most people get screwed over just because they don't know something, not because they're bad people. Because there's a lot of evil people who don't get screwed over in the courts. So it doesn't make them bad that they get screwed over. It just means that they normally don't know some of the processes that they may have should have been aware of, or someone could have made them aware of, and they just didn't. They chose not to. Um, don't talk about some of that. But while I'm still here, let me just recap this right here real fast. First man is given mandate to eat fruits and vegetables. Adam man is given mandate to eat fruits and vegetables. After the flood, the first the what we know as reptiles, whatever the that definition of reptiles are good to eat. Um, you skip forward some thousands of years, everything changes. You can eat now animals that have blood of life in them. You can't eat certain animals that have the blood of life, but you can eat these animals. You can eat. You can't eat all the fish, but you can eat these fish. You can't eat all the birds, but you can eat these birds. And these animals that some of us were taught are not reptiles, or we already know in our minds are not reptiles, right? We have to say to ourselves now, okay, even those things, even when we distinguish those from what we know or believe to be reptiles, right? All that stuff still lines up and it has to be what it is. The rules have changed. But as the rules have changed, right? As the process of dietary function and let's say continuity, you know, all of that has been it's been manipulated to fit the times. You don't have to cook fruits and vegetables to eat them. You don't have to cook a potato to eat it. You really don't. You see what I'm saying? But you can. You can put fire on it. It tastes good. You see what I'm saying? Like, but you could eat an onion raw. Sure, it tastes a little better cooked, but you can still eat it raw. I can't think of one fruit or vegetable that you can't eat raw. You can eat them all raw, and they're just fine for you. Actually, they're very good for you like that. With that said, my friends, every time you cook something, cook in good faith. Thank the Most High God that He gave you two hands to prepare a meal. And it's awkward that one of the most atrocious things that we do is the only good thing that we can do. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that beautiful in a sense? It's almost poetic justice. But I'm getting ready to go ahead and let this ride. Let y'all enjoy your nights. Get ready for work tomorrow. Um, but before I roll out, is there any questions about whether or not cooking, sacrifice, alchemy, and how it all plays in together with the law? Anything? No, I'm not saying cooking is bad. Um, but what we know to do and what our ancestors did is not the same. You get me? They didn't prepare meats every day. They didn't cook meats every day. The idea of having meats was that you offered the meats that you had to the priest for sacrifice to make atonement for your wrongdoing. You see what I'm saying? So if you ate meats for for any other reason, right? Other than for just like the Most High said, like offering pretty much, just cause you want to make an offering to me, you have to eat all that food that day. It has to be eaten then. If you can't save anything, you know. So and even that's a sacrifice. But you're talking about eating, okay? But how you don't eat no raw meat, you don't eat no raw meat, right? You cook it. So what we call cooking is sacrifice, sister. What they call sacrifice in the Bible is cooking. Do they not build a fire for their charcoal grill or the propane? Is it not a fire on the propane? It's a fire that they use. The same type of fire you would use to burn anything else up and offer it with. I know it's crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but this is the truth. This is why the whole concept of offering something to the Most High is so sacred. Man, this has probably been this. I once again, I'm getting better at staying on track. I'm getting better at that. People don't come around like they used to, bothering talking shit. So that's cool. But I'm getting much better at staying on track. I think I did a pretty good job of staying on task. Keep doing what you're doing, sister. Stay alive. That's what you should be doing now. You should be staying alive. If you can't do nothing else if you don't do that. Don't do anything excessive. Big sister, just don't do nothing excessive. Nothing that you already, don't do or do or whatever. But like if you think you eat too much red meat, then slow down. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. And be conscious. Be ever conscious that that was a living animal at one point in time. And for us to have taken part in eating what we call a steak or a burger or whatever, for us to have had something like that 1,000 years ago, we'd have had to have sacrificed and offered that animal to our God for a reason. See what I'm saying? We wouldn't have just been out there like, oh, I'm about to eat a beef chop tonight because I want to, because that's not how it worked. But hey, y'all, I got to get ready to go. So that I got some planning I got to do. Got a little bit of planning I got to do. But sister, I promise I'm gonna pick this up again. Promise I'm gonna pick this up again. I was so worried about this court stuff, but after they did what they did, I feel better. The judge tried to play me. Like I said, I went in there and he acted as if the judge acted as if he never seen me before a day in his life. So when that happened, I knew it was over. I knew I was screwed. Or at least I knew he was going to do something funny. And he did that. So that's cool. But now that all that's out the way, now that all that's done and over with, I don't have to worry about them no more. All I have to do is just stay out of trouble, fight this other case, use this other case to start my civil suit, and go at it like that. Maybe if I beat this case, they drop the ERPO anyway. So we'll see how everything goes. But y'all, please be ever, ever, ever conscious. Every time you eat a piece of chicken or whatever, be thankful. For real, be thankful. Right on, sister. Right on. I give you guys a big old air hug. You know, as always, it is an honor. You guys know it's an honor. I appreciate you. I salute you. You guys have a blessed night and an even better week. And I will be getting on this. Yeah, look for me tomorrow because it's about to go down. Talking about some legal stuff. I'm gonna let you guys know how I do tomorrow, but it's about to go down. Look for me. All right. Peace out.